What's up, everybody? TJ Schwartz here with Lucas Burnley. Welcome back to the Edge and Flow podcast. We missed a couple weeks. We were having fun. We did some cool things, and we're back.
Oh, feels good.
That's right. What were we doing?
We were doing all kinds of stuff, man. You and I both have new employees, so that's one. Ate up some time. Last weekend we went turkey hunting, and it was awesome.
Hunting, not killing,
not catching.
Yep,
that's for true.
Yep,
seeing.
Yep,
hearing.
Hearing. We went turkey hearing.
Well, did you ever actually see one?
I did not.
You never laid eyes on one.
There was. I think it was me and Doug and Aaron were the only ones that didn't see it.
And
I think you and Patrick saw one.
Patrick saw him like 2 days in a row.
Yeah, and he was alone. So
I thought he was lying until I saw.
Should we be skeptical?
No, I was like pretty sure.
Yeah,
but no, dude. If anyone was going to see one, I believe it would be Patrick because I was with him for 8 hours on the first day. He found 2 sheds and saw a skunk. He's got good eyes.
Yeah. Some people, dude, they see it all.
He was tuned in.
Yeah. Well, I must have been out there with freaking those glasses you wear in a tanning thing because I just didn't see anything.
You know what's funny is I did. So one of the things that we had walkie-talkies and then we realized we want to be quiet. So everybody's texting each other, which just on a foundational level, I absolutely hated. I was like, I don't want to look at my phone. Don't want to be on X while I'm doing this.
Yeah.
Dude, next time we're doing mics.
Yeah.
Walkie-talkies with ear mics.
Yeah. Headsets.
Yeah. Headsets.
My dad actually bought those exact headsets for duck hunting.
Yes.
Back when I was a kid. And back then technology for that stuff sucked really bad.
Yeah.
And now it's really good.
Now it's awesome.
Even like AirPods or something. I mean, there's so many ways to do it now. But yeah, that's
I think that's going to be my method. So
yeah.
I've been hyper focusing on.
Well, and I do see the value in the communication though, because it's like you are chasing sounds in the woods and trying to shoot it with a shotgun.
Yeah.
And it's like I'm smart enough not to shoot at a person, obviously, but knowing where people are at does seem wise if you have 5 or 6 people with you.
Well, and just everybody's seeing with turkey, everybody's seeing something different. And you're like, okay, I'm going to move down the hill, move in. It's just real time. Dude, they're smart.
Yeah.
That was a good trip. So this was basically kind of work, kind of not work. That would be traditional, right?
Mm-hmm.
We went with a few of the guys from CRKT and it was a really good time.
Yeah. In Hood River, Oregon region.
Stayed out for a few nights and cooked food and walked around the woods.
It was great. And we were totally glamping. I mean, we were in an Airbnb, so
yeah,
we weren't roughing it. That's for sure.
I'm going to go. So I don't know if I told you this, but I went to retrieve a friend that was stuck in the snow yesterday and I almost hit a turkey crossing the road. Full on. I marked it on X too. So now I know.
Was it a tom or?
It was a hen, but where there's hens.
Toms are following.
Dude.
Yeah.
And it's it was great because it's 40 minutes away.
Nice.
So I think Bo's going to get a camping trip.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're just going to go out
quote
and scout
unquote
for
camping.
A little while. Yeah.
Yeah. There's turkeys north of me, but within an hour from me that I know I see all the time, but I haven't hunted them ever. So
man, it was really
had to go all the way to Oregon to experience it. Now I can see it. Now I can understand. I grew up waterfowl hunting, but I wasn't sure about turkey because I'm like, well, I've done a lot of bird hunting, but it's not this. I mean, there's almost nothing that compares. They're so different. It's two different complete animals.
Was it you the one who said it's like poor man's elk?
I've heard that before.
You've heard that phrase before? Yeah, I've heard that too. I like it. Yeah, that's good. We just need to get a few things on the books. We need to make sure that we hang out outside of shows and outside of the pod.
Yeah, I know. And we missed a downshift this month at least.
Yeah.
Unless we do one in the next 72 hours, which probably won't happen.
Well, and you said you were thinking that maybe the hunting trip was a downshift, and I pushed back on that.
Yeah, it's a good thing to investigate there because I guess part of my reasoning for calling it a downshift was I realized that weekend would have been the week that I would have actually done a downshift scheduling wise. And I was like, I can't do a downshift and then disappear turkey hunting. It's just going to blow too many holes in my situation. So I think for me, it was a scheduling reason. I don't know if I can justify it
I
from a
don't
like
accept that.
philosophical
No,
reason.
I don't accept it because look, here's the thing. Your case, you got driving out of it. You got a lot of driving.
Yeah.
So that's like part of your downshift. But I would just say like it was still, there was no like real creativity. We
Yeah.
actually kind of forced ourselves to not talk about work as much as possible.
That was debatable.
And
That's
the work that,
debatable.
yeah, but the work we talked about, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
We talked about work a little.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I've been going through this, the coaching program.
Hmm.
Interesting conversation yesterday with Terrence, and he made a really astute observation that like clicked something in my brain. And he was like, what if you stop looking at work-life balance as like so binary? And instantly I was like, you mean like a rancher? Because I've been like setting these things of this is work, this is like not work, right? Man, like a rancher, it's like sometimes you're fixing a tractor, sometimes you're like out looking for coyotes, sometimes you're dealing with, a calf, like sometimes you're hauling hay. Like there's so many different jobs
Hmm.
that if you were to just look at like certain aspects of that as like this is work, falling back into our what is work conversation.
Yeah.
And it created some like weird space around it where I was like,
Yeah.
like
If you treat career as a lifestyle, kind of.
yeah, like
Yeah.
just accept, like, I mean, Maddie and I work together. We have our shop on our property. Like we have a lot of flexibility around that, but also some like hard, kind of obligations.
Hmm.
But if I don't look at it like this one-to-one, scenario of like work or like leisure or work or life,
Hmm.
I think it actually removes like a lot of weird like pain points.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And
So
the division between work and life, that's a 100% new phenomena. It's like if you
yeah,
went 200 years ago and you ask any human being living out west or anywhere in the world, honestly, if you said like, when are you working? When are you not working?
yeah,
They'd be like, what do you mean not working? Come
yeah.
again?
And our
Like,
lifestyle is like closer to that
yeah.
like in our career or in our field, it's closer to that. It was funny. I came in and I was like talking to Maddie about it, and she's like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. She's like, I think on some level, she's like, that's why I picked you, which I was like pretty funny. She's like, you make something that is like both like artistic and functional. And she's like, historically, that just seems like life. And I
Yeah.
was like, huh,
Pretty natural state of being.
pretty natural state of being. She's been gardening a lot lately and like trying to get like actual food production off of our little piece of property. And it's the same thing. Like I look at that and I'm like, I can't differentiate that between that and work.
Hmm.
And so what we've been talking about is like almost just setting it up to like, all right, like the baseline of what needs to happen inside of the business can be accounted for. But if like on a given day, you're like, that work is done, you're probably actually better going out and like working in the garden.
Hmm.
Still
Yeah, for
work.
sure. For sure.
Okay. First tangent.
No, I like it. That's accurate. It no the binary making things binary that aren't binary in terms of lifestyle is that's a good point. I'm gonna
It's
have
just
to
a hard one, man, because it's
think about
so
that.
a lot of the content around efficiency or time management or like the whole field, like a lot of it comes from like 9 to 5 kind of grinds. And so anytime you input information into a system that wasn't designed for it, like you're gonna run into like some problems. Like it overall might still work. There's a lot of truths to it. But at the same time, like it can be modified. A lot of this too is like around like this whole like ADHD diagnosis thing and like digging into it and
Hmm.
trying to like basically hack it.
Hmm.
So
Harness it.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna harness the
So
power.
another, not a tangent, but back to what we mentioned earlier. We did talk about having employees
Yeah.
before and how that was coming. You have had a guy in there for 2 weeks. You said.
Yep.
Tell me about it.
2 weeks, 4 days. So right now he's working. It like just started really slow. Basically, he comes in 1 day a week, 5 hours. I think we're gonna get up to 2 days a week, hopefully 2 8-hour days.
Hmm.
Dude, I missed it so much. I didn't even realize how much I missed it. Like it just having an extra set of hands in the shop is insanity. Like
So,
so far the jobs, like I basically had him run the laser. I set it up. He runs, but he ran it for 4 hours.
mhm.
Yesterday, we've slowly been getting our like leather production online. Maddie set up to run coasters, and he basically ran a whole shoulder and then stamped a shoulder, like stamped all the coasters. And I look at it and I'm like, that right there would have been my entire day. And so just
Mhm.
the ability to like delegate that means, one, it actually gets done, and two, it gets done in an efficient way.
That's awesome,
Yeah.
and I'm happy to hear
Dude,
it.
I'm
I did
psyched.
have a tiny quick tangent on the leather. So
Okay.
you're cutting it with a press and
Yep.
stamping
Clicker.
it?
So stamping it with a clicker, or sorry, cutting it with a clicker, stamping it with a clicker.
So when I was doing the combs, which I do kind of think about bringing back at some
Mm-hmm.
point, I came up with I don't know if it was my idea, but I think it's something I've seen out there before. But I used G10 to machine the stamp. G10
Mm-hmm.
works as a leather stamp really well, it lasts
Mm-hmm.
infinitely long. And I had it made to fit inside the clicker die. And
Dude, we were
then
talking about it.
you put layers of neoprene inside of the clicker die, and
Yep.
then you have it stamp and cut at the same time.
Yep.
And then the neoprene and the stamping portion ejects the leather. And so you can literally just go chunk, 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 and you don't have
I'll
to
pick your
pull it
brain
out.
on that for sure.
It's like insanely fast. I would
Yeah.
do a whole side of leather in an hour, and it
Dude,
was
we
all
were
stamped.
talking about that exact thing. Maddie was like, "Is there a way that we can stamp and cut at the same time?" And I was like, "I'm sure there is. I don't
Yeah,
know what it is."
yeah, there
So
is.
we've been doing Delrin for our dies,
Mm.
and you can cut it on the laser.
Yeah,
It's awesome.
nice.
So you can just basically you create a stamp, you like reverse the image, create a stamp. But what I will do is I will create a stamp that fits inside the die and
Give it
then
a
try
try.
that.
Give it a
It
try.
makes perfect sense. Seems like there's some like some setting, like you would have to have like your dimensions like super dialed.
Yeah, I can show you. I had a couple of little tweaks I had to
Okay.
do to get it to work. The nice thing too is it eliminates the possibility of the stamp not lining up.
That's my favorite part.
It's like it's just
Yeah.
guaranteed. It's just
Yep.
guaranteed.
Well, and that's such like a basic premise right there, which is like just eliminate any margin for
Yeah,
error.
yeah.
So, dude,
Well, I'm happy you have that employee in there, man.
me too.
It's cool to see. It's a it's a
But
game changer.
it like makes me want more. Like instantly, I was just like
Yeah,
the power
there's
of like delegation.
a big part of my brain power right now is diverted to like resisting certain urges and having like planning to have too many employees too fast is one thing I'm
Mhm.
like being really, really careful about. So I got the first full timer starting on Monday, and I'm thinking a lot about it because I'm like, I need to make. I don't even want to think about two employees. I'm trying to push
Right.
that out of my mind because I'll find myself like going that efficiency route and thinking about delegation and to more than just one person. And
Mhm.
I'm trying to resist. I'm trying to just focus on one step at a time.
Mhm.
And then also be aware that there's a point coming, and I think for me pretty soon where I will stop. And maybe it's one employee, maybe it's as many as like three, but my heart seems to tell me that it's like between one and three, or maybe my gut tells me that for a max. But
Interesting.
because I'm not trying to build, I don't want to be a benchmade. I just don't.
Let me ask you like a roundabout question here. Of the small shops that you've been in that are doing like higher production numbers, what's the average number of employees?
I don't know of very many shops that are run the way I am running that I've
Right.
been in.
Right. I know it's
There's
not. It's like apples to oranges, kind of.
Yeah, because most of the ones I've seen, they're growing more than what I want.
Mm-hmm.
They're like aiming higher as far as volume goes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm aiming lower than most of the people I talk to,
Mm-hmm.
and so usually if they only have a couple employees, it's like they're working towards the next one at all times, kind of
Right.
thing.
Yeah.
So
Ugh.
it's just a different philosophy.
You can't be in a growth state 100% of the time.
Yeah,
Well,
and
I
you
mean, I guess some
can.
people are.
Yeah, some people
Yeah, but
are.
for how long
I mean,
and at what cost?
yeah, there's a human cost to that
There's a
for
human
sure.
cost, right?
Yeah,
I like the idea that I just like that as small as possible,
yeah.
as big as necessary.
I don't want to make my whole life a loss leader.
Yeah.
You
Exactly.
know what
Like
I mean?
always just waiting for it to be profitable.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, like, oh, it's gonna be so profitable if I have XYZ set up, and then you get to that point and you're like, well, it's I just if I finance one more thing, if I, hire one more person, like
Dude,
it's a
and that's
it's a
hedonic
vacuum.
treadmill. That's a
Yeah.
hedonic treadmill around work,
Mhm.
which again, if we're talking about this like work life fusion for us is like basically the same thing. Like it doesn't really like I get as excited about new tooling in the shop as I do about like any other thing that I could possibly purchase.
Mhm.
That means that I have to be careful
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
like with it,
And I've also tried to think of, like, throwing either money or labor
Yeah.
at something is a last resort.
Yeah.
So I try to solve every problem at every angle until
Yeah.
the only thing that'll solve it is money or labor.
Yeah.
And it's the harder way to do it because it, in the modern world, it's actually pretty easy to throw money at a problem.
Yeah.
And I try money, just efficiency and organization can go so far
Yeah.
with a pretty small amount of equipment and labor.
I would say like gut response would be that like, okay, money as a backup is great. Money
Mhm.
as a primary solution, not great.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I think there's efficiency there that wouldn't exist if you're just like, oh, I can afford the next machine. Like I'm just
Yeah.
going to buy that. So here's another thought then. If you have this idea of like 1 to 3 full-time employees, does that include like support employees? Because say, is that 1 to 3 employees in the shop floor, or is like
No,
one of those people
I'd say 1 to 3 total.
1 to 3
Cuz
total?
cuz right now like I mean it's so far away to even think about, but if it was 3, one of those people would be more of like a shipping office
Yeah.
scenario.
I
Uh,
think there's like weird metrics around like employees too of like where it gets more difficult and then like where it lightens up. So my question was going to be like maybe an exercise you could do is like look at like just kind of try to figure out what each employee like would create. So like I would look at like this as small as possible thing would be like I want it to be as small of a team as possible that still lets me walk away
mhm.
for X amount of time.
Yeah.
That would be really interesting.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Where you're like, all right, I'm going to go for a month. And I know that employee 1 is going to handle this and 2 can be a backup.
Mhm.
Like, so you've got like margins of, some
Yeah.
redundancy.
And I to that point, like I have no concept of being like a silent owner. It's just
Yeah.
not in my blood, but a silent owner for 2 weeks, a month, every once in a while, like that
Yeah.
does sound pretty nice to just
Yeah.
say, shoot me a text if you got a problem.
Yep.
See you in 30 days or whatever.
Yep. Accessible, but not like necessary.
Yeah. Yeah. That'd be great.
You know?
And so, yeah, Monday, Dalton is his name, starting with me. He's, I think, going to be awesome. I'm really
And this
looking
is full.
forward
So
to
he's
it.
never worked a day in the shop.
He's come in. I brought him in once, and
Okay.
then he was in my shop again, just talking.
Yep.
But I had him making sheaths for me one day, just for a while, and just kind of talking. Honestly, I know the thing is I don't really have to. There's certain things I know I don't have to really investigate with him because he makes a lot of cool stuff on his own. So I can see just based on his work already what he's capable of from his like eye for detail.
Yeah.
But part of it is just like I just want to get to know this guy, talk to him, make some stuff together. Like that's kind of what I was looking for. And the click was there enough where I was super pumped, and we went ahead and signed some paperwork and full steam ahead. So he's coming in, and I was going to mention there's this one dilemma that I have that kind of came about, and that is there's a pile of stuff that I want to delegate pretty early. There's work waiting. I've kind of got a hopper of stuff, like the raw materials are here, everything's here, all the fixtures are set up, and it occurred to me, I was like, I've been looking so small ball, like looking at so many fine details that I realized I'm like, okay, he's going to show up. I'm going to delegate this. I've been focused on that. And then I think like, okay, in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, let's say he is operating like autonomously on these things. The idea is for me to be freed up to think more macro. And it was like, when I kind of sat back, I was like, okay, what are those macro things? I kind of felt like this weird vacuum and this weird like emptiness of like, what am I going to do with my time? Right. Because it was like I've been so in this trench that to go stand up and do and like look more macro just felt weird. And so I sat down and I just opened up like a Google Doc. And I started making a list of like, I put macro to-do list at the top, and I just started putting macro things that need to be looked at and need to be done. And once I had the
Mhm.
list, I felt a lot better. But there was like a whole week where I hadn't made that list yet. And I was like, what am I going to do if I delegate this? And it felt
Right.
weird. So approaching that, it's like just as much a training for him as it is a training for me of like, what's the new workflow for me?
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I will be very impressed if you guys just like hit the ground running and you're
Yeah.
efficient. It might just be the way that like my brain works, but like when I have someone new in, I notice that I'm just like, I can't fully disconnect.
Yep.
There's more questions. There's more like I'm going to like check in on what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not as smooth of a
Yeah.
process. And like I just get distracted.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And I felt that because I've had part-time help. And I think
yeah,
that's what I found. I think that's when I immediately realized I needed a full-timer. Is it's like if it's too intermittent for certain types of
yeah,
things, I was noticing that I wasn't being all that productive when I
yeah.
had them. And so it was like, if I'm not all that productive when I have them here, why am I not just doing it? You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it was
Yeah,
like if I
you
have a full,
lose your own productivity to gain someone else's on a task that warrants someone else's, but that you could do
yeah,
faster. So the key is really like you just have to be able to stay productive yourself
yeah, yeah. So
once you pass like the initial stage.
yeah, and that's why I made that list is just I gotta
That's
force
smart.
myself to make the switch. And
Hmm.
I was doing that today. I've got the part timer. He's working all the way through until this new guy starts.
Oh,
So
nice.
Steven's out there making sheaths like right now. And today I was kind of going through that list, starting on the first item. So I was doing there's some website stuff. I wanted to work on my copy and work on the structure of the store and stuff. And
Working on the business instead of in the business.
yeah, exactly. So I've got,
Those are like the funny points where like doing this, like kind of trying to hack my hyper focus. I'm looking and I'm like, man, that like at some point I'm just going to schedule a month of shop upgrades,
mm-hmm,
because the problem is like once I start doing something, I get wrapped up in it and I have a very hard time stopping.
yeah,
And if I try to chip away at things, my brain like doesn't really work very well that
yeah,
way. It's like too many irons in the fire.
yeah,
But like, dude, at this point, setting a budget and like a chop list and just like working on the shop for a
yeah,
solid month. But I think I could do that. And then I truly think I could disconnect
mm-hmm,
from that and like walk away. And I think it's like overall in the course of a year, if I let some of these like hyper focus, which you and I like were trying to kind of dig into a while back and calling them like deep dives. So like my deep dive is actually just a hyper focus. If I can
mm-hmm.
do a few of those a year and just allow it, I think it makes a more productive year.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's to that point. One of the things I put on that list was a maintenance schedule because every machine or every piece of equipment has some sort of maintenance thing with it,
Yeah.
whether it's like double checking the oil level on your auto oilers,
Yeah.
changing filters on the air compressor, belt on the air compressor,
Yeah.
like things that right now is just kind of like whack-a-mole. And that's something I was never going to really be able to handle with my bandwidth. But now
Yeah.
that I have employees, I
Yep.
can put it on there and just be like, okay, I'm going to systematize this. I'm going to spend a
Yep.
deep dive 2 days
Yep.
and either research some program with like alarm reminders,
Yep.
or maybe it's just a spreadsheet. I don't know,
Yep.
but that's what I need to dig into.
Dude, even just calendar. Like
Yeah.
you just set it reoccurring,
Yep.
like change oil once a month. Well, and the funny thing is like, I think a lot of people would look at it and go, okay, I'm going to have the new guy do this.
Mhm.
The reality of it is that type of maintenance, in my opinion, at the scale that we're at, is best done by us, because you're actually going to be the one to notice if there's some other problem.
Mhm.
Unless someone is like super careful, like you're just not going to notice if something's getting worn out,
Yeah.
or if there's like like, I don't know, leak in an airline. Like it's just a different,
Yeah.
it's like founder's dilemma, right?
My dad had a phrase he was talking about just recently. I think it was systematize the things that can be systematized so that everything else can be humanized.
Oh, that's good.
Because if there's things that are dumb obvious, like you need to change the oil in the compressor every X amount of days,
Yeah.
it's like if it takes human energy to remember that,
Yeah.
it's a waste of human energy.
Yeah.
It's like that human energy should be like a more human task is
Yeah.
what that should be doing, not trying to remember this stuff.
No, you want,
So
well, it's like, don't solve the same problem twice.
Yeah.
It's like a similar thing. Like once you know that you need to change the oil
Hmm.
and you need to do it every X amount of hours or, put it on a calendar, you never have to think about it again. That frees up your cognition to work on something more important.
Yeah. And something that isn't systematized at all, like thinking about your brand. You're not going to sit there and have a spreadsheet for how your vision is going to work for the next 5 years. Like that's a human process. So it's like having human time aside is you earn that by systematizing everything else.
I know you're not an iPhone guy. I know you're not
I'm
Apple in
not.
general. Okay. Do you over there in the Luddite side of things do you have any type of AI voice assistant on your phone, on your handset?
I mean, Google,
Okay.
not Siri, but yeah.
Lately, I never use Siri. Lately, I started using her because I realized that if I picked up my phone and put a note in it, a lot of times I would like go down a rabbit hole on something else. And so lately I'm using Siri and I'm like, oh man, that's actually, I wear AirPods all the time. I literally just record voice memos or notes.
That's cool.
And it's faster than, this is the first time where I'm like actually finding a value over not just using my notebook, which is always within like 8 inches of my hand.
Yeah. So I do have a Google Home, which is like the Google version. That's just like a little speaker that you put in your house. But I put one in the shop. And actually the main thing I use it for out there is timers. So when I'm doing kydex and things, if I need to know cool down timing, I'll say, hey Google, blah blah blah, set a timer for X amount of time, and then I can just go back to work and I don't have to like fumble.
Yeah, genius.
Because you always, you put something in the tumbler and maybe I have a timer on my tumbler that turns it off. But back when I didn't, if I said, hey, Google, set a timer for 2 hours, put it in there, then it's like I said, you systematized it so that I didn't even have to look at my watch. I can go do something else completely, do something so totally human.
Yeah.
And then boom, the timer goes off. All right, pulling it out. Yeah. So yeah, that's I've only used it for timers, but the notes thing, that's a good point.
It's just it's the exact same thing. It's like you have the ability to give a command, hear it heard, and have it acted upon. Just vocalizing it sets that in motion. But I'm sure that there's a lot of people, probably some people listening that are like, yeah, that's ridiculous. Like, it's so obvious. I do that all the time. But my brain doesn't work like that. Yeah. I'm not used to it. Like I'm used to writing down a note. Do you listen to the podcast Hidden Brain?
A few.
Okay. They just had one on like why we forget and how to remember more. And it was pretty interesting. There's like different types of different like mechanisms for forgetting information. Really? And I thought that was really, because you think like, oh, it's just like, yeah, you forget it. But there's actually like different like levels and ways that we forget things.
Wow. Yeah, I need to listen to that.
It's a good one.
I'm relatively forgetful. And so setting alarms, like on my phone is one of the things. I had a dentist appointment this morning and I was like, tomorrow morning, I got a dentist appointment. I'm going to get out in the shop. I'm going to start working with my employee. There's a good chance I'm going to miss it. And so I went ahead and put an alarm in there. I will forget stuff like that almost more than half the time if I don't do something.
Same.
So
it's hard, man. Yeah. There's a lot of things to remember.
There is.
Nick Rossi always says there's a lot of steel in that steel. and so like I find myself using that, like a lot of information in that information. Like it's just a lot, man.
Yeah.
Folksy wisdom.
So having this employee for 2 days that you want to have 8 hours a day, do you think, like we bounced around it, but do you think having more than one employee or going full time with somebody is a real thing?
I'm the hang up right now. The reality is that like our business fully warrants a full-time employee. Like there's not a point where I haven't had an employee other than this for like the last decade. It was just always part-time. I'm the weakest link in the chain, but as I'm getting better with CAD, as I'm getting better with my machining, like it's almost a foregone conclusion. Like I'm a couple steps away from being able to like do something that would bog me down to where that was all I could do. At that point, I'm essentially close to the same boat that you are, which is just like, okay, like there's capacity that I can't do. The question is if I want to do that, if I'm built for it.
Mhm.
Um, and we also have like other areas of the business. And so I'm like, do I hire, like at this point, like getting leather online, like we could have one employee that just was in charge of leather.
Mhm.
Um, and I love that idea, and I think we could make that a full-time position like pretty quickly.
Oh yeah.
But if we do that, then I don't have a shop assistant.
Yeah.
And I don't know that the two people are the same employee because the
Yeah.
jobs are different. So it's a really hard question.
Yeah.
My gut response is that muscle memory is kicking in and I'm just really enjoying having help.
Yeah.
And I'm
Dude.
starting to not dread, like I know there's jobs coming up that are like bigger, like big drops of side pops and stuff like that, where it's like, okay, this is where I can use an extra, pair of hands.
Mhm.
And things that there's jobs that I really, really want to focus on that maybe don't like pay on the immediate level. And the reality is like having help is a way to achieve that. It's
Mhm.
that macro focus of like,
Yeah.
cool, I'm going to like disappear into this, CAD, vortex for
Get
the next 2 weeks.
get yourself a macro to-do list.
Okay.
Because I have a to-do list out in the shop that I had kind of like things in the shop that need to happen production-wise in the next 2 months or so.
Yep.
And I did it with all the bullet points, and I highlighted all the stuff that I was going to hire out, that I was going to basically train an employee for. So all the, highlighted stuff, that way an employee could come in and be like, see, here's our goal. But that's just like make sheaths, assemble sheaths, assemble knives, tumble knives, sandblast, blah, blah, blah. It's like granular stuff, like very literal list. That was when I realized like there's another list that needs to exist that doesn't have anything to do with that. Because I was in my head when I made that list, I was like, well, there's things I need to do.
What would you consider a macro list? Like, give me a breakdown of like you have a normal to do list. You just kind of gave the example for that.
I'm gonna bring
What's
it
up?
up.
Oh,
Uh,
nice.
yeah, I've got it. I do everything Google Docs. Google owns me, so
Hey
I
Siri,
guess once they
remind
get
me to
hacked,
make
you
a
guys are all
macro
gonna
to do
know.
list.
Yeah, but so website. There's a bunch of website cleanup I need to do. Um, I want to clean up my accounting because I just became an S corp,
Yep.
and I've got it set up. But there's some things that in this transition I've kind of left a little bit messy as far as like bookkeeping. So I want to clean that up. There's some power stuff. Like I have a couple extension cords run in my shop that I don't like. So I want to actually go out there and like figure out ways to do that more cleanly. Because
Have you
there's
run anything from the ceiling?
not power. I
Dude,
could.
I've
Yeah.
been doing it in my shop, and I have some outlets in the ceiling, but
Yeah.
even with wall outlets, like you just take electrical, whatever, like the eyelet little loops,
Yeah.
screw it up, and then do a drop.
Well, what's got me is like so I had an electrician help me when I put the new outlets in my shop.
Mm-hmm.
By code, you have to do GFCI
Mm-hmm.
because it doesn't have a finished floor. I guess that's the code.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the GFCIs don't like electric motors.
They
And so,
specifically don't like electric motors with variable frequency drives.
yeah. I like had one outlet that wasn't a GFCI because my grinder would not start on the GFCI. So
Yep.
I've had to run extension cords. So I need to pull a bunch of outlets out and go back to a standard outlet. So, in other words, part of it is just the plugs are where they need to be because I designed them that way,
Yep.
but they're GFCI and they won't work.
Yep.
And so
We ran into the same thing. Like, dig into this for a little bit.
Mhm.
The way around that was I had to mark the outlets because we were still dealing when we were going through permitting.
Yeah.
And I was like, look, I can't run a GFCI. And he's like, well, you have to. I'm like,
Yeah.
but I can't.
Doesn't work.
He's like, all right, so you have to, there was like some annotation that had to happen. Like I had to list what tools were on it and mark that it wasn't like a GFCI and then just put that piece of tape next to the outlet. Like that was what satisfied the need in permitting. It was crazy because it took me a while like to figure it out. I'm like, I plug my grinder doesn't work. Like my brain didn't automatically go to that brand new outlet.
Yeah. No, that exact same thing happened to me. And I called the guy, the electrician guy, and he was like, yeah, man, some things don't like GFCI. It's like a frequency thing. I don't know.
So yeah,
My air
mark
conditioner
it.
doesn't like it either.
Yeah. Mark it and then run up through the ceiling. I just do
Yeah.
like, you can go to Harbor Freight and get like the 25-foot, like 3-prong extension cords.
Mm-hmm.
They have a light in them, which is awesome. Dude, a Velcro cable tie. So you can get it up out of your way when you don't need it
Mm-hmm.
and just drop them in the middle of the room.
That's awesome. I do need to do that.
Yeah.
So like the power, I want to organize my storage. I've got a bunch of bins coming from Uline. In fact, they might be out in front of my house right now. I ordered some, found out I loved them, and then ordered 2 different other colors so that I can color code, because I'm going to have bins that are in shop, bins that are stuff moving, a different color moving in and out of vendors. So going to heat treat, going to surface grinding, water
So
jet.
you're going to ship in the bin?
No, I don't
Okay.
have to ship anything. So everything's in Boise. So it's just transportation.
Oh, right. Okay. Dude, that's amazing.
And then I'm going to have a color that's like, these are finished, because it's like, I will get into the time period where right now I've been assembling every order one at a time, and it gets assembled and ends up all the way in its final packaging for USPS. Mm-hmm. And then I start the next one. And so the assembly includes like all the way to the shipping label. When I have the employee doing it, I need him to be able to assemble like 20, 30, 40, 50 knives that have like stickers on them with the order number or whatever we figure out. But that means I need a way to hold sharp finished knives without them like piling up. So there's going to be a color of a bin that's like, these aren't in process, these are finished. So there's like a color for finished, a color for heading out of the shop, and then a color for more of like storage in process. Cool. So that's on here. I got to put more planning into that. I need prints because I'm going to have this guy running machines. I need more prints. There's some things that are just tribal knowledge that I've had in my head. Need that on paper. Just developing some new products, more YouTube videos. I want my trade show exhibit, which I'm going to Blade Show West this year and exhibiting. I need to start thinking about that, of how that exhibit is going to look, because I got a booth space.
Dude, I love it.
And then develop some marketing things I want to develop. And then, stuff like that, that it's not like you're out there, sandblasting a knife and you're like, okay, the next thing I need to do after sandblasting the knife is work on organizational management. You know what I mean? It's like, it's just,
welcome to my brain.
It's a different thing.
Right. That's exactly what my brain does.
Right. Well, dude, a macro to-do list, give it a shot.
I love it. Yeah. I kind of have that in general. I have multiple to-do lists, but that would fall under like shop upgrades, or you have a couple things in there, like new product. That's different.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like revolving schedule.
Yeah.
In the business, on the business.
So I'm going to be supporting my employee.
Yeah.
There's a couple things on production that I'm absolutely still going to do as far as I can see into the future. And then this is going to become 80% of my work, is like the things I just listed, and then beyond
for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's like part of me, like I go back and forth on it because I like the work. Like the work is a means to an end, but it's also the work, which I enjoy.
Yeah.
And if I was to be able to work on the shop and improve systems, I would like it. If I was to have to manage employees, just be a manager, I wouldn't like it. I don't like it. I know I don't like it. So that's where that scaling thing really comes into play, is like at a point you need a decision maker.
Yeah.
Not top level decisions, but you need like mid management. Don't come to me unless it's a decision over $500.
Yeah. Problem solving ability is what you need.
Yeah. Like, oh, you need end mills. Like, okay. Like we're ordering end mills or whatever it is, or you get a report at the end of the week for some of the stuff. But
and my hope is that I can Kanban everything with lean, like with that, I don't think, at least for now, that my employee would have to be involved in ordering if that system is fully operational. But that's on me to get that so operational that they always have what they need. But decision making for me for that person is like, okay, there's a little anomaly happening with the Kydex. Like, is it too hot? You know what I mean? Like, figure that out. You know what I mean? Because it's like, it's always a learning curve and there's a lot of questions, but like being able to realize like, oh, it's summer and this thing's running hotter and they're not cooling down as fast, solving problems like that.
Yeah. And not just continuing to make parts that have some issue. Like if it feels weird, it is weird.
Yeah.
Probably.
Exactly. Yep.
We should set a calendar reminder to follow up in, what do you think, 3 or 6 months? Because what I think is going to happen, I think we're going to talk about employees for a while, and then I think it'll just be pretty normalized, and we'll stop talking about it because it'll just be like workflow. Mm-hmm. But I think we should just like kind of put a pin at a point to review.
Yeah, what we've learned.
6 months.
Yeah.
Okay,
let's do it.
I like that.
So if you had a macro to-do list, if you had a blank piece of paper in front of you, what are some things?
Man, I have a bunch of half-finished systems. The problem is the systems all require time and money. I've actually been thinking about this a little bit. So like ultimately, say I do a hyper focus on the shop for a month. It would range from, okay, I know I need blinds in the shop, so that means I need to trim out my windows. I want to finish my forging area. I need some shelving on the walls. I need cabinets on the walls. It for the most part, it's infrastructure. Mm-hmm. They're like, my little manual mill needs a DRO. The problem is that when I look at all of the jobs currently, I actually get overwhelmed and like my brain fries out because there's so much to do. Yeah. But if I could exist in that space only for a while, I think it would just like leapfrog, because like object in motion, like once you start doing maintenance, you're doing maintenance. Yeah. It's easier to do the repairs. The right tools are out. You're already making runs to depot. Like you're already ordering stuff from Grainger. You're just rolling. Yep. So that is actually kind of my macro list is going to be framed in a way of essentially like a period of time. Because my list, when I just have a list with like objects on it, it's very hard for me to get it done. So that's like one of the hacks that I'm trying to do, which is like came up with Terrence yesterday as well, which was like, okay, so we know that you have this tendency to like, you can't focus on things you don't want to focus on. And it's really easy to focus when you want to. He's like, you can frame it in the way that what is damaged by you hyper focusing. So he's like, look at the business and talk to Maddie and see like, okay, if I'm doing this for a month, what systems suffer? Mm-hmm. And that was a really good way to look at it, because like, of course I would prefer, that's like my preferred method of working, but I've always felt guilt around it because there's so many things that I feel like I should be doing. And so this, I'm going to start to like give it a try. So like right now, I know that I put things off until the very end. Like we were talking about that. Like I didn't practice turkey calling till I was in the truck on the way up to the mountain.
You know what my solve for that was?
Not have a call.
Let you guys call.
Well, a lot of good it did us, man.
Let you guys scare them off for me.
I know, man. Oh, but point being, so like I have a show in July. I have one show this year. We're also going to France. I have a feeling that if it would be very easy for me to wait for like till we're 3 months out from going to France, and then I'll start show prep. I don't want to do that. And so what I'm actually doing is saying like, okay, this is the primary focus. So deep dive becomes show prep. So I'm starting show prep today for a show in July. And that is a first for me. In there was something else that came up that was like pretty fun, which was active recovery. So here's edge and flow as like the term of the podcast. I'm actually seeing something that I never realized before. I think that maybe flow state affects people who are neurotypical the way that hyperfocus affects people who have ADHD. Because when I look, there's like 7 triggers for hyperfocus, or sorry, there's 7 triggers for flow state. It's basically everything that like gets me into like a hyperfocus spiral. And it feels really similar. Where I feel flow state is things that are like surfing, where it engages. You want to hear what the 7?
Yeah.
You want to hear what the 7 triggers are? All right, I'm going to pull it up. So it's going to like take me a second, but let's see. Flow state triggers.
Jamie, pull it up.
Yeah, dude. Someday. Okay, we need to have a podcast on that too. Okay, so 7 conditions of flow. Okay, it's like actually pretty simple. Okay, it's knowing what to do, knowing how to do it, knowing how well one is doing, knowing where to go if navigation is involved, high perceived challenges, and freedom from distractions.
That's the big one.
Those are the flow state triggers. That last one is insanity with ADHD. If I can hit that one, the problem is the distraction. So once I can hit that, like that focus point, dude, all distractions go away, including like eating, sleeping, remembering to like talk to family. So there's some problems around it. But again, it's like, you can look at some of this stuff and be like, all right, well, this is an issue, or it's just like an asset that I have to like use cautiously.
And another thing with the distraction, how big of a role do you think guilt plays in distraction? Like, how is that a driver for a lot of distraction? Because for me, sometimes I feel like it is, because it's like the thought of someone else needing something from you is a driver for a lot of distraction.
Yeah.
And then you feel selfish if you shut that out.
Yeah. I mean, there's, dude, it's like an endless, I think there's a lot of drivers in there, but yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think around some of this stuff, like that method of working, I know is the most functional for me, but I have always had guilt around it because I felt like I was incapable of completing some other obligation. The reality is not quite that. It's just that I don't know what it is. So it'll be interesting. It's like it's just adapting. I mean, that is for me like key to successful business and life in general is like the ability to adapt, to not fight a weak position, and to like work with the tools that you have in the most efficient way. And it's really hard if you don't know what those are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is.
So
yeah, no, when you were describing that, I was kind of thinking about that distraction thing. And it occurred to me, like, I think the downshift is a way of doing this, but it's like, I think what might be at the root of the downshift for me is let go of the guilt of feeling selfish.
100%.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
That because the like, not, especially when you have like family, kids, you got business, you got customers, you've got emails, you got people that want designs from you, you got everything. And then it's like you force yourself to be distracted by those things out of guilt.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's a true tenet of the downshift, is like, be kind of selfish and
I think I 100% agree.
Tripped.
That's why, like, for me, I've always said, like, I don't want it to be around work. I don't necessarily, hang on, I got a cough. Don't necessarily want it to be around like sports or like some type of like very specific activity.
Mm-hmm.
It's the freedom to do nothing and to think. And for me at this point, that is involving like being in creative spaces.
Yeah.
Right now for you, that might be just being in your car for 5 hours. But if you tell Becca like, hey, I'm going to go for a 5-hour drive, you would feel guilty.
The guilt is the strongest distraction.
Why? Like, why are you doing that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's when the busier life gets, the more people rely on you, the more that comes in.
And the more you need it. And so this plays into like this thought, right? So don't know that that's accurate. This is my own like observation in the ways that I feel that I both feel true flow states and then hyper focus. And I'm starting to see some differences. Whereas before I did not. Terrence brought up this concept of active recovery being necessary for flow states. And it like clicked so well with just like the hyper focus thing. Cause when you're done, you're drained, and it's like a little burnout. So the active recovery is that like shift of doing something that you're looking forward to doing that is like active in a different way, that is essentially like palate cleansing, like going camping with the kids,
Mhm.
something where it's like, you know, they're going to have fun. You can detach from work. You can detach from the focus or the flow. And that, oh man, it's like, so I just feel like so much of life right now is like figuring out how to engage like self-care so that you can be like high performing, because
Mhm.
everybody wants to be high performing and have it cost nothing.
Yeah.
Like you want to be able to sleep 4 hours, like, you know, do an hour in the gym, work 12-hour days, like, and spend time with your family. And I mean,
Yeah.
is that a possibility? Like without true, like without recovery, without rest,
Without a
without,
limitless pill.
dude,
Mhm.
when it's out, I will be
I
on
want
it.
that other 90%.
Dude, I
Give it to
know.
me.
I know. Oh, okay. That was a good tangent. But you also brought up downshift again.
Yeah.
So are we going to do it?
Yeah, let's so I got the new employee coming in.
I know.
I do think having a downshift with him is going to be
First
awesome.
day. First day. You're on your
Right?
own.
But I probably will give it like 2 weeks to
Okay.
get settled in. And then probably after that. So that puts us middle of May.
Okay. I'll probably take mine pretty soon. We staggered the last one. And that's actually kind of fun.
Yeah.
I think just from a process standpoint, I think it's good to do some together and stagger some.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
No, for sure.
I like it.
I got to tell you, I hit flow state while we were turkey hunting.
Yeah.
And the reason it occurred to me this whole that point of like the guilt thing
Uh-huh.
is like we were out there on the mountain, we were texting each other, we were
Yeah.
like collaborating,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And we got into this one spot and I laid behind this log waiting and I didn't have phone service right there. You probably remember this.
Oh, I do remember. Yeah.
And I like was trying to text you guys and I was like, I got two things. I can get frustrated at my phone right now, or I can just realize if they need me, they're going to walk over here and get me because they know where I am. And so I was like, I like put my phone down and I picked up a stick. And with turkeys, I'm like expecting to hear them come, right? And so I'm like, I'm just going to sit here and listen and just whittle. And then sure enough, I see Aaron, like, I don't know, an hour later come walk over
Dude.
there. And it was that I was in a flow state, like whittling that stick. And that's where I
Yeah.
do think I think being out of service actually allowed that
100, dude, absolutely.
in that moment. And so
Yep.
I can hear what you're saying because the phone is the critical. If you're on a mission,
Yeah.
the communication is key.
Yeah.
But it does eliminate it because, like I said, it's if you don't respond and you just go rogue, like
Yeah.
it feels selfish, and
Right.
you can't go into flow state if you're feeling selfish.
Oh, that's an
You know
interesting.
what I mean?
So that's actually what triggered that thought. Huh.
Yeah.
That makes, I think definitely I would guess that there, just like there are triggers to engage flow state, there are probably like
Mhm.
triggers that inhibit
Yeah.
it. Right. So
I think
guilt.
that's my biggest one for sure. Is like if I'm in a position, like for example, on an airplane, I always seem to hit flow state,
Hmm.
and it's because no matter what anyone needs from me, there's no way I can give it to them.
Right.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so if I'm in a position where I could answer an email, where I could answer a phone call, where I could do something, then I have a
Then
hard
you
time.
will do something.
Then I will, or I'll sit there and be guilty, feeling that I'm not, even if I'm doing nothing. You know what I mean?
Doing nothing is awesome.
So leaving
Just in
phone
general.
service is probably a good thing for me.
Yeah. Dude, I had one of the best naps I've had in a long time. I was
Dude,
out in like a sunny field. There's a log. I laid down. I fell asleep.
the
I
weather,
woke
dude.
up to a turkey
Oh yeah,
gobbling, and I was like, "This is amazing."
it was like 65 degrees.
I still had
Like,
coffee.
yeah, dude. Yeah,
so good.
It was
I'm
really
going to
good.
go back at least
It was
once
really good. Yeah.
this season. I got to
Mhm.
do it. All right, camping trip. We got to get the kids together. I
Yeah,
think.
we do.
Dude, I think getting Delta and Winston together would be really
Mhm.
fun. Like
That'd be
most of my friends I've gotten together with, their kids are like Bo's age.
Yeah.
So it'd be fun to like actually take Winston out and like, I don't know, meet somewhere in the middle and just camp for a
Yeah.
night or two.
Yeah. What's that place that we talked about going camping before? By LeGrand. LeGrand around there would probably be pretty cool.
The Grand. Yeah. I don't know my way around well enough yet. Like, Would John Day, like John Day
John
would be
Day,
kind of,
that's what
yeah,
I
okay.
yeah,
Like
John
John
Day.
Day would kind of be in the middle.
Yep, that's what I was thinking about.
Take
So
him to
maybe
look
we
at
could explore that.
fossils.
Can I tell a weird story?
Lay it on me.
I'm driving over there to meet you guys. I'm going through LeGrand. Beautiful place, like the mountains. I was really digging it. I just stopped at a grocery store because I wanted to get a few things for the trip. It was weird, dude. I felt like it was a glitch in the Matrix. Okay,
Yeah.
so wonderful people there. It was interesting though. So I walk in, and the guy at the front door who has an employee shirt on, he's like, "Good morning," and he looks at me like very, very directly, and I was like, instantly, I'm like, "Am I wearing pants? Am I like, did I forget? Like, is there something weird about me that made like he just was very direct about like saying it to me?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm just a chipper guy, right? Like he's in a good mood." So I would keep walking in, and I go and like I'm looking at, you know how you look at your list and you're like, I know what's on the list, I know where it is, but I'm getting it in order so I can
Mhm.
do a one shot circle. I'm looking at the list, and this other nice lady that's working at the counter, she's like, "Excuse me, sir, how are you doing?" And I'm like, "Good." And she's like, "You look lost." And I'm like, "I'm just looking at my list." And she's like, and she looks at me like questioning what I'm saying. And I'm like, I think I'm gonna get it figured out. And she's like, "Okay." And I'm like,
Oh, you
"What?"
hit a glitch.
So I
That's
walk
like
around
some
the
children. That's like
corner.
Children of the Corn or
I
something
walk around
weird
the
going.
corner and I go down an aisle, and there's a lady like organizing the candles. I'm not even kidding. I'm going
Mm.
past her. She's looking at a candle. She holds it out in front of my face for me to smell it without saying a word. And like I'm walking past, and like and I'm just like, "Whoa." And I like smell it, and she's like, "It's good, huh?"
Dude, I've
And I'm
seen
like
too many movies. It's
and I'm
freaking me out.
and it was kind of like they were wonderful people. Like I'm not complaining. It's just it had this feeling of like, we've been waiting for you. You know
Oh,
what I mean? And it was like, I think they just run a good outfit and they're like wanting to interact with
they're
people.
friendly.
But
Like,
it was like I walked out of there seriously like with
mm.
my hair raised. It was so, I don't know. It was interesting.
Next time you drive through, that store is not going to be there.
It's like
Burned
Shutter
down
Island,
in
dude.
1986.
It's like I'm this whole time I've been like in an experimental micro world that I'm just
Dude,
escaped from. I
I
don't know.
like it. All right, that's a
But
good
super
story.
random story. But I told my wife, that was the first thing I told her when I got home. I was like, dude, that was a weird, I don't know.
I love it. Should we wrap it on that? It
Yeah,
feels
my
like
dogs are
can't top it.
barking.
All right.
Anyway,
All right.
good to see you, man.
Likewise, man. Thanks for listening, guys.
Yeah.
Sorry about the pause.
Thanks, everybody.
See you soon.
Bye.